don't know where Tem's gone, but welcome to another We Talk Chelsea podcast with Tom, Charlie, and Temba, who's somewhere in the background. I don't know where he's disappeared to. We'll try and bring him back in just a second, but chaps, there's no game to review due to International Week, but I had a little bit of a look, and it's officially come Saturday, 5:30 kickoff time. Chelsea would officially have gone 4 weeks, nearly a month without losing a game of football. So we have to celebrate those small wins, don't we, Charlie Harris?
Well, that's it, isn't it? I mean, obviously the international break helped us. We're going into a cocktail of games, I would say, that could be spun by a barman and go one way or the other. But let's hope that we start on a flurry. And this game on Saturday is a big game. Obviously, to remind everyone, I had to remind myself off the back of 3 wins, including the Carling Cup or Worthington Cup or whatever it's called, Cup against Brighton, and Fulham and Burnley away. We're on a roll. Obviously, Arsenal are as well, but we're at home, so it's an intriguing contest. There's no doubt about that. Tom,
yeah,
how are you feeling as a Chelsea fan? Are you getting back in the groove after the international break?
Charlie, I'm not going to lie, I absolutely hate International Week. I could not give any less of a toss about International Football Week. I think I only get involved in England games when it's tournaments, and I know how that sounds, but I just find them so boring. I find qualifiers boring. I find friendlies boring. I just can't get behind it. I just can't really get behind it. And he's playing Jordan Henderson, and he shouldn't be because he's League Two standard league now. So it's stupid. But we digress. We absolutely digress. But yeah, Charlie, you are absolutely right. Arsenal return to Stamford Bridge on Saturday, 5:30 p.m. kickoff, and it's the return of a couple of ex-Chelsea players, Kai Havertz and Jorginho. I'm curious to what you think, Charlie, in regards to the reception of Kai Havertz returning to Stamford Bridge on Saturday. Do you believe he's going to be met with derision, or do you think that'll be saved, particularly for another Chelsea player that's ex-Chelsea player that's playing in Manchester instead?
I just don't know what to think, to be honest, because all of the players, both of those players, to be honest, were heroes a year ago or so, 12 months or so, or longer. It will be interesting to see his reception. He hasn't hit the ground running, let's face it, at Arsenal, just as he didn't leave the ground running that well at Chelsea. So I would be surprised. He may not even start. There's a pretty good chance that he won't even start or barely feature. I think it'll be a bit of a mix. I don't think we'll be singing his name. Let's put it that way. But I don't think we'll be. I think it'll be a pretty mixed reception. I think some fans will boo him outright. I think the way he left was a bit strange, wasn't it? In a sense, but yeah, I think it'll be a bit of a mixed reception.
I think the key thing is I don't think any of us really saw that coming. Do you know what I mean? Like him leaving. I think that's what was a bit jarring. But I just want to bring it back to like the international week. I mean, you're looking at some of the players, and Arsenal, have got players going out on international fixtures. Who do you think it kind of favours more? Does it hamper Chelsea a little bit further? Obviously, our midfield is Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo having to travel across to South America for their qualifiers and friendlies. It's a long way to travel. Saliba is not. It's Bukayo Saka is potentially going to come back. They've been rested, and these are key players for Arsenal. Do you feel that this is going to potentially hinder Chelsea on Saturday?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, international break's a funny one, isn't it? Because even when we were the Chelsea of old, if you like, with Mourinho, I always remember coming back from international breaks. We always used to struggle, and it does make a difference to the better clubs. It always throws out funny results. That's what I'll say. Don't expect this weekend to do an accumulator and expect to win every match that's likely to come in. It just doesn't happen. The bigger teams tend to suffer more. And I think Jurgen Klopp had something this week. I was reading that they're playing at 12:30 on Saturday, and he was a
He's
bit
moaning
disappointed.
again, isn't he?
He always moans about kickoff times. It's his classic. I'm not sure whether there's much. Obviously, when they win, he forgets about all that. If they lose, he'll go back on it and say, "I told you so." Typical Klopp. But yeah, I think with the international thing, yes, okay. Like you say, our whole midfield pretty much is South America in terms of the scope of it. But Arsenal have a few South American players as well, so it's pretty much tit for tat. We're playing at the same time. We're playing against each other. We're at home, so I don't know. I wouldn't say I have a good feeling about it, but I think it's a really interesting contest. Let's put it that way.
Do you think having 3 wins on the bounce, the momentum going into the game potentially could have been hampered a little bit by the international break? But obviously, Arsenal coming to Stamford Bridge, Chelsea haven't beaten Arsenal since Mauricio Sarri, and that's 5 years or so ago now. It's a long time.
But people
to go
forget
without
Arsenal.
beating a team.
Yeah, but Arsenal are off the back of beating Man City, so they're as they're probably more buoyed up than us. They've got Tottenham to catch. I don't know. I think both teams are on a bit of a high at the moment. Arsenal, it's probably more of a must win for Arsenal than it is for Chelsea. I'll say that much. I think if we drew it, I think we'd be. I don't know. Speaking for myself here, but I would be very happy with a draw at home to Arsenal. On current form, as much as I'd love to win. But I think if we lost respectively again, I wouldn't be. If we lost 1-0, but we gave it a bit of a fight again, it wouldn't be too bad. It's sad to say that because it just shows how things have changed. I mean, if I was to say that 5 years ago, people would be biting my neck off. But clearly things have changed, and we have to accept that. But what do you reckon, Tom, going into it? I mean, obviously, I think it's clear that Arsenal are the favourites. But as a Chelsea fan, what would you sort of say would be a good performance, good result, good whatever? I mean, how would you look at it?
I mean, it's a great question, Charlie, and I'm happy to answer it. But I think I want to ask Tem, who's managed to sort his issues out on this one. So I just wanted to wait for the opportune moment to just bring him through. But Temba, I mean, what do you think about this game going in on Saturday? Do you feel Chelsea been hampered by the international break? Do you think it benefits Chelsea? Do you think it benefits Arsenal? And how do you see the lay of the land come Saturday, let's say 7:30 p.m. when it's all said and done and the dust is settled?
I think it's kind of a hindrance for both. In a sense, I think Arsenal are on very good form. They just beat Man City. They probably would have wanted to play us before the international break, especially on the fact that we've been a team that's very inconsistent over the last year or so. And maybe we wanted to play them as well just before the international break because, we've actually started winning games, beating teams we should beat. And this is kind of the game I don't think anyone expects us to actually win, but at the same time, if we won, would a lot of people be too surprised? Probably not. So I don't know. I don't know where I sit on this. I'm just fearful of the fact that we have our main players still out, and this is probably the biggest fixture of the season, in my opinion. I think beating Arsenal at home almost sets a precedent for the rest of the season. If we lose to them, we kind of, go back to the same normal old where we think we're not good enough to beat anyone who's above us and, the top 6. And I think I saw we haven't won against Arsenal since Mauricio Sarri was here. So again, it would be good to actually beat him at the Bridge because, yeah, obviously through the last 3 or 4 times we've either drew or lost, and just a statement because we haven't beat a Big 6 team. I think it's something around over 600 days now, and I think the last one would have probably been Spurs away, 3-0. I think against under Thomas Tuchel. Yeah. I was at that game, and I think that was our last win against the top 6. So yeah, a very long time ago. You're talking about nearly 2 years now? Is it coming up, or is that a year?
It was after COVID, wasn't it? I think it was. Is that right?
Yeah, so 2
It was
years.
wasn't it Lukaku? Wasn't it the season we bought Lukaku?
Yeah.
It was basically when we were on a run.
2021.
We were looked like we were going somewhere, and then everything just capitulated quite quickly.
Yeah.
That was just after we won the Champions League, so it would have been 1-2, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, it would have been either early 2022 or late 2021, about that time. Yeah. So a very long time ago since we'd be a top 6 team, and yeah, I think just as a statement and just to put that sort of bad record aside against Arsenal or against the top 6, because obviously you guys remember when we always used to lose against Arsenal, always, and then the tide sort of changed where we always used to beat Arsenal, and you know they hated playing against us. They would play all the football and we just do all the battering, and they almost didn't think it was fair, the fact that you know that they had a good footballing team, but we had a good just winning team. We knew how just to play to win. And I think it's kind of flipped on the opposite side when we played against Arteta's teams, where they've actually been quite defensive against us. If you remember, the first 2 or 3 games, he played like a really defensive game, and he just managed to completely stop everything that was coming at them, and they managed to beat us. And ever since then, they've built upon that, and now they're a good footballing side where they can mix it up, play good football, and sort of play on the defense when they need to play on the defense. And I think it's something we just need to aspire to be. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think, but I think it's a free hit at this game.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, I
in
mean,
that
I
sense.
definitely think it's a free hit.
Sorry, Tom. You
No,
go.
I think it's a free hit for ourselves, like you said, Tem, Charlie. I think a key thing that we have is, you know, we do have players returning to the fold, like in terms of we've been overly reliant on people that would maybe not have started the game. So, you know, people like Badiashile making a return, you know, on Instagram 2 hours ago, you know, Reece James shared pictures of him smiling on the pitch. He's rejoined the first team squad, training at full fitness. Well, we say full fitness, but it's training to get to full match fitness, saying thanks for the people that were patient with me. And obviously he's aware of, you know, the injury issues that he's experiencing. And, you know, the Chelsea fans are probably a little bit frustrated because on his day, let's face it, Reece James is, you know, one of the best right backs in the world. He really is. But the problem is just him staying fit. But I think that would be a massive statement to have Reece James even turn up on the pitch, even if he gets 20 minutes, you know, because Reece, he is a player that could potentially not strike fear in the hearts of Arsenal fans, but you know, they'd be foolish to not accept and recognise what a difference Reece James could make to a Chelsea team, especially on that right-hand side. And I think he'd be a big impact. Is that something you think Reece James would be a big impact, Charlie, or do you think, you know, it's too soon for him to have any sort of significant influence?
We've got big games coming up, in my opinion. This is just one of many.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't risk him at all, to be honest. I think even if it's 0-0 or 1-0 or something, I just wouldn't risk him. I just don't see the point. I don't see if before the game now we sit here and we go, if we drew 0-0 against Arsenal on Saturday, we're, as Chelsea fans, before the game, forget what happens in the game, and a bit like you go in a coma for 90 minutes, you wake up. 0-0 is probably you probably take that, right? So no matter, even if we're looking half decent and Reece James is on the bench, I actually just wouldn't risk it. I think I would rather just draw the 0-0 and take something from that game. A bit like the Liverpool game. The Liverpool game was a weird one because you know, that was probably the best performance we've had all season, the Liverpool game, and yet we drew it, right?
Yeah.
And we probably could have won it. And it's the same as last season. Probably the best game was Tottenham at home. I think a lot of people would agree. That was and we drew it, right? And we were a bit unlucky. But the point is that it's sometimes it's about the performance and a mixture of the performance and the result. But I do think it's not worth. I just don't think it's worth risking Reece James again. We have other games. We have so many big games coming up that we can really feed him in slowly. If he comes on for 2 minutes at the end and we're losing 3-0, I'll be happy enough with that in terms of Reece James. Not in terms of result, but in terms of Reece James. That sits with me. I don't want to be 2-0 down with 20 minutes to go and then throwing Reece James on and pressurizing him to run up and down the wing. I think that's ridiculous. If they do that, that's silly, because it's
Temba,
3 points is 3 points.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, Temba, I think Charlie does make an excellent point of one that we haven't really considered is we mentioned it a lot. We do have a very, very tough run of games. So is it worth risking even if some form of game time for Reece James now, or do we potentially does Mauricio Pochettino look and waiting and delaying that until next weekend instead?
Yeah, I think I agree with Charlie. We've seen, especially with Reece James, just him getting injured just in training. I think we saw a report about that. So it shows you how delicate he is as a footballer. And we've seen it with players like Ian Robben, where they're just cursed with injuries at Chelsea, and then somehow he regains his form. He goes to Bayern Munich and he's playing every game and he's so consistent and whatnot. I think we've just got to take care of him now, where we don't run him into the ground so much, where he just can't play a game, and we're so reliant on him. And that's another huge issue I think we need to kind of step away from. And it's a good thing we have Malo Gusto now. Obviously, the red card really didn't help because, he probably could have used the games that he had a red card to gain some momentum, and to throw him in a fixture against Arsenal, who probably have definitely one of the best wingers in the league at the moment in Martinelli. Although as much as I don't like his playing style, he is a threat. He is a threat on the left hand side. He'll need to deal with someone who's just going to keep running at him, whether it's ugly or clean sort of running. Martinelli is just going to put his head down, dribble 1v1 every time, and playing week in, week out would have helped him sort of just be a bit more sharp, I suppose. In a convoluted answer, I think the best thing is to rest Reece James, but who knows who starts at right back.
I don't think Cucurella is going to start at right back. I think whilst he's had this run of games playing in that position to fill in for Malo Gusto, I don't think he's not that long-term solution, let's face it. I think Malo Gusto is going to go straight into the starting lineup. I'm fairly certain you're going to see Reece James on the bench. Whether he comes on or not, I think he will be on the bench, but could Pochettino potentially use it? Could it be seen, Charlie, as not mind games? It's not.
Yeah, no. I was just about
as mind games against Arsenal and Mikel Arteta.
I was just about to say. I was just about to say that. I mean, just putting his name on the bench, even though you have no intention of playing him, and just getting him to warm up on the corner flag, it does just distract, Poglicosti from his own game, doesn't it? He has to think about how he's going to react to that and all this other stuff. So yeah, it's worth doing. I mean, what are you laughing at? It's a game of charades, isn't it? It's a game of charades.
Yeah, sorry. I think you meant Arteta. You said Postecoglou, so that's why.
Sorry, why did I say? Sorry. Okay, Arteta. Sorry about that. Sorry. It's been a long week so far.
Okay,
it's been a long week so far.
You got Spurs on the brain.
Yeah, they're coming up, aren't they? So if we have to take that piece and move it to the Spurs podcast, then we can always do that.
We'll copy and paste it in a couple of weeks for Spurs.
Sorry about that, subscribers. That sounds very Tim Pot, but Arteta. That was the one I meant.
Yeah. Tim, I initially asked Charlie about Kai Havertz making his return to Stamford Bridge for the first time. I think Charlie made the point of saying he doesn't see Kai Havertz starting the game because do you think we've watched a lot of Kai Havertz over the years? We've seen him play absolutely fantastic, but more often than not, we've seen him play absolutely terribly. But when the chips are down, it's a high-pressure game. Kai Havertz, he does, generally speaking, turn up. If you look at the Champions League final, but how do you feel that will Mikel Arteta utilize that Havertz's, ability to play at Stamford Bridge? He's familiar with it, or do you think can see Kai Havertz not really having a significant impact? Which Arsenal player, like you said, Martinelli, Bukayo Saka potentially being returned for the lineup, and Declan Rice is playing particularly fantastically well in that midfield. Do you think where do you see the battles being won and lost on Saturday?
Oh, okay. Well, I think midfield, and I think they totally have dominance of that midfield, and the
Even with
wings
Havertz?
as well. Well, what's the question you asking? Is Havertz starting, and is it going to impact the game, or are you asking where are we going to win and lose the battles?
Both. Say, for example, Kai Havertz starts the game, and he's generally been playing as a central midfielder, which we have seen him do for Chelsea. His first few games for Chelsea as a centre midfielder, either side of Kante and Mount on the other side of Kante. He's not a central midfielder. He just isn't. But if he was to start in that midfield, would that be advantage Chelsea, or how do you feel it's going to play out?
It's a difficult one because I think a lot relies on also Declan Rice and Odegaard. How do you stop and combat those threats? If Havertz starts in a 3 with them, I don't think he's going to be one to come deep and receive the ball and create good chances. Thing is, it's all about stopping Odegaard from getting the ball off someone like Rice or even the first phase from the defenders and turning to give off a simple pass. I think deploying someone like Gallagher, which I imagine Pochettino will do, I think his role is going to be vitally important. How does he hold himself against someone like Declan Rice and whoever's going to partner him, whether that's Odegaard and Partey or Odegaard and I can't remember who's the other midfielder. I think is it Vieira? Is it Vieira? Their other midfielder?
Yeah, but they chop and change.
Vieira.
They play 3, don't they? I think they play 3.
Sometimes 3 and 2. Zinchenko sometimes drops into midfield as well from left back. So I don't think Enzo is going to be a very combative midfielder. Although against Liverpool, he did show that side of his game. He showed every side of his game. So he's going to need to pull out a performance exactly the same as he did against Liverpool in order for us to be anywhere as near as good as Arsenal are, because they do dominate the ball. Even against Man City, they still keep the ball very well. So in that sense, if Kai Havertz starts, I think it's more an advantage to Chelsea to keep the ball and maybe create good chances. But I don't think he starts. I think he comes on as a second half sub. I think Arteta knows he's not good enough to play midfield. I don't understand why he signed him as a midfielder. I don't know what he was seeing exactly. Maybe he thought he's like a number 10, as many of our managers have tried to play him, or a false 9 sort of thing. He is a weird enigma because you can't fit him into a position. He's not nimble. He's got a great touch, but he's not strong.
I don't think he has.
He's got a trampoline touch.
No, he's got a great touch, but the problem is he's not
consistent
with it. Yeah. He's not consistent. If you remember the goal against like Newcastle, that's the best of Kai Havertz's touch. Did you remember?
Very forgettable.
This is quite a funny story. So when we signed him, right? I remember I was on holiday and we signed him, and I was on holiday, and he came from, was it Bayern Leverkusen? We bought him from, and there were these German football fans in my hotel, and we used to chat at the bar and stuff like that. And I was chatting to these guys. Said, "Oh, you've signed Kai Havertz." We said, I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, 70, that's a bargain." And they were literally, they were like, "This guy is the best thing since sliced bread. He's so good." And I never quite saw it at Chelsea. We saw glimpses of brilliance, but it was so inconsistent. And what's funny is you can see glimpses of brilliance in a Sunday League team, can't you? But it's the consistency that makes you a professional. Let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
So
no.
So yeah, I mean that's what I would say. I think Gallagher is actually going to be key in this midfield battle. If he can get onto Rice every time, if he can stop him receiving the ball early and making an early pass into the likes of Odegaard and people like that, I think that's going to be the key, isn't it? I think Gallagher's so far this season has probably been our most consistent player. Let's put it that way at least. And he's obviously got a good work rate, and he's if he can just get straight into Rice and stop him from playing football, that's probably going to win that particular battle. But obviously,
And Chelsea,
yeah,
they're quite good at the moment. With we've noticed a Pochettino style side, especially in the last 3 games, with a high press in the final third. You know, Conor Gallagher is the player with the most recoveries in the opposition's third in the Premier League all season. So that's part of the reason why I agree with Tim. I can definitely see Conor Gallagher being utilised, and I think Conor Gallagher's establishing himself as a Pochettino player that's probably going to end up playing at the weekend as well. But I think a key thing I want to discuss on this one is the lineup going forward and who we think Chelsea, who's going to start for Chelsea on Saturday. If you look at the lineup that we had against Burnley, obviously changes had to be made due to a multitude of reasons. I think it's fairly obvious Sanchez stays in goal at this point. I can't. There's no other player really that's going to go there, so we'll just ignore that. But the right back position is the key one. Do we all agree that Cucurella is going to drop out with Malo Gusto coming in?
Go on, Charlie. I'll let you answer this.
Well, it's that I would say it's 50-50. I actually would. I think I think Cucurella's performed fairly well actually the last few games and probably deserves his place in this match. However, I'm not going to tell people how to suck eggs, but it's obvious what the conundrum is that Gusto was playing quite well until he got the red card. So that's the toss up, isn't it? Can Cucurella move to left back? That's another question. That's obviously for another thing.
It is his natural position, but you got to factor in the fact Saka's likely to start that game. And realistically, do you put Cucurella in against Bukayo Saka the way that Bukayo Saka's playing at the moment? I can't see that happening. But the problem is who'd you put there, because it's not just the right back position, it's the centre back position that we've got issues with at the moment. But Tem, with regards to the right back, Malo Gusto comes in, or do you think Cucurella is going to stick in that position for this game?
I'm not actually sure. I think there is a third conundrum. I think from what I've seen with Reece James' post of him fully training today, he might even play. And I think he might even start. From the naivety I've seen of previous managers with Reece James, I would not be surprised if he started.
I don't want it to be risk.
Minutes. I know we're thinking about it from a fan's point of view. Yeah. I don't want him to be risked either, but I can genuinely see a situation where he starts. And it's another thing. I don't know who's given him these green lights to be like, you're clearly ready and fit, and then his muscles just tearing up or whatever, seizing up. And I don't understand it. I really don't, because I don't know if he's doing a light load in training or he's doing a heavy load in training and then showing up with, maybe kind of feeling leggy or something where his muscles are prone for injury. I'm not exactly sure, but I do see a scenario where he does start, and because he is captain as well. We have to remember that.
Yeah, maybe that's one of those games that he's got for that reason, because he is the club captain, so he might be brought in even for just the first half of Malo Gusto and just say, do you know what, you've got 45 minutes, try and get us on the front foot and bring Malo Gusto to close up shop in the second half. But a key thing that we do need to factor in as well in this scenario is sorry, go on, Tom.
And I was just going to add, you have to remember that pressure is on Pochettino. This is his first big game at Stamford, second big game at Stamford Bridge. The owners are going to be there, and you always see the owners sort of in the spotlight of coming to the game after and before. If Reece James starts, he'll be off by the 30th minute. Yeah, I probably agree with Chris.
I agree. Yeah,
he's not wrong there. He's not wrong there, but
I think I speak for all Chelsea fans that we're very, very likely to see the very sad, dejected face of, Reece James walking off the pitch to a polite applause once again at some point in the near future. Hopefully not on Saturday. Sorry, Tim, I interrupted.
Yeah, and like I say, I think the pressure is on Pochettino, and we know pressure at Stamford Bridge where the owner's been there. We've seen it with Roman. We've seen it even with these new owners where, you just have to get results at the end of the day. These games are televised worldwide. All the fans are going to be on your back if you don't play so and so. So if he has to play his best 11, he will play his best 11. And if Reece James is fit, I think he will start.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. It's definitely a key area, key decision for Pochettino at the weekend. So another area that we need to look at is the centre back position. Axel Disasi was brought into the France squad along with Malo Gusto, but had to withdraw a few hours later due to a tear in his quadriceps in his left thigh. He's probably going to be assessed, but it's very, very likely he's not going to be included in the squad at all at the weekend. So it brings in this dilemma that Pochettino has to deal with. You know, Badiashile is not fully fit. Is this the time that we do see Thiago Silva paired alongside Colwill, or is Pochettino going to think, do you know what, Colwill, keep him on the left to try and nullify Bukayo Saka, Charlie? Do you think that's probably the only option, is to keep Colwill out left and then maybe look at another area? Maybe, well, it's not going to be Trevoh Chalobah, is it? Because he's still injured. But, you know,
yeah, we've got no option. We don't have an option, do we? That's going to be the solution, obviously. If what you're saying, you know, if that's factual, that's what's going to happen. Obviously, the problem that we've got is we've got loads of left backs obviously hanging around.
Yep.
So that's where the choice goes. If literally, I mean, obviously, Badiashile's still out. Yeah. Chalobah's out till January. And what you were saying, Diazi's out for what? He's out now, is he?
Disasi, yeah, he's out for at least the next 10 days, at least till the Brentford game.
Right. So there is no option then, is there? So it's going to have to be Silva and Colwill.
It's Silva Colwill, which does beg the question. The left back is more than likely going to be Marc Cucurella. So it's a big job on the hands of the young Spaniards.
It has to be because Chilwell's out, isn't he? So
if we can see Cucurella against
Maatsen, I mean, I can't see that. Is he around?
I can't see him. He is around, but I can't see it being. I think the emphasis will be placed on nullifying Bukayo Saka as much as possible. Maatsen, we haven't seen enough from him in that respect. But Cucurella, if we can get a second half against Brighton in the League Cup, Cucurella, then yes, you know, he's going to smother him the whole game. Not let him turn it in on his left foot and just try and nullify him. But do you think, Tim, if you're in Pochettino's shoes, do you think, you know, let's just go with Maatsen? Or do you think Cucurella is probably the person that's going to be tasked to do a Park Ji-sung against Andrea Pirlo in the Champions League?
My problem with Cucurella is he has a bozo gene in him. I think he just wants, you know, just the one moment you think, what are you doing? Like, he can have the perfect game, but it's just that one time where you think, what are you doing? Like, you just ruined that performance by doing that specific bad thing. And I think we haven't yet been punished this season, but a lot of the times last season we were, you know, against in the Champions League where he stepped out stupidly. I think it was
Burnley. I would say Burnley. He was at fault for their goal.
Yeah, it was very late press. Yeah, it was a very late press.
He was one of the problems, but I think also Disasi and Silva were beaten way too easily that side, and they let the striker get too much space there. But yeah, you're right. Cucurella also at fault for not closing his legs quick enough there, and yeah, last season, like I say, against I think it was Rodrigo. Was it? Did we play Real Madrid? Who did we play?
Yeah, Rodrigo.
Yeah. And then Chalobah was the one at home where he stepped in stupidly. Yeah. So moments like that, you see Cucurella do every so often, where he thinks he can win the ball, he presses out high, and then the player just skips past him, sort of thing. And you think, like, you know, you didn't have to give the player that much time. I mean, you didn't have to close the player that quickly, because the greatest defenders defend with time. They don't rush out quickly and you know fly at every ball, sort of thing. So
yeah, I think it's a famous Paolo Maldini quote. He says, "If I have to make a tackle, I've done something wrong."
Yeah,
I don't know if you looked at the stats, but Levi Colwill doesn't make a lot of tackles, which it suggests, you know, there's a player in there for the future. He's one of the lower people down in the Premier League for actual tackles, like made and attempted. So, yeah.
Well, unless
maybe he said, "Look, stick there, cover completely for Cucurella the whole time. You're playing left back and left centre back at the same time. You got to try and do that for me, please. I beg of you, Levi."
Yeah, and it's something I joke about with my mates about Wan-Bissaka as the fullback, but he is probably the best 1v1 defender, unless you've got that speed and sort of last man ability where you can, you know, wrap your legs around someone and make a last ditch tackle, which Cucurella doesn't. there's no point, thinking you can physically dominate someone by rushing out at them and then thinking you're going to catch them on a foot race, especially someone like Saka. He's young and nimble. He's going to get past you nearly every single time. And I don't know if you guys have seen his goals this season. They're pretty much all of them a carbon copy, where he starts off on the outside, cuts on the inside, and bends it around the corner. And I don't think Cucurella is someone who can handle that at all.
He's the new Arjen Robben. He's the new Arjen Robben. But do you think he could kind of consider this factor? Because if you look at this, the midfield, despite Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo have to go to South America on international duty, there's not a lot of options really in there. Carney Chukwuemeka's, whilst he's back training, he suffered a setback, so it's going to delay his return by 10 days. We've only got 4 recognised midfielders really. We've got Lesley Ugochukwu, Enzo, Caicedo, and then Conor Gallagher. I think we can pretty much be unanimous that they will be the 3 that will start. But do you think that, to factor in Cucurella's maybe, like I said, bozo gene, he's going to speak to Caicedo and say, look, double up on him every single time, stop back, cut in, and just try and keep him on his right as much as possible? Charlie, do you think that's... Would that, if you're in that position, do you say, I want you to completely 2-up on him the whole time?
Yeah, I mean, I think Enzo's job's probably going to be out of his comfort zone a little bit. I think he's going to have to run around quite a lot in this game. He's going to have to do a lot more interceptions, a lot more. He's going to have to be physical, basically. He's not going to get much time on the ball and to play it spraying lovely passes. It's not going to be that sort of game. Yeah, Gallagher will be in his element. This is. He should have a good game. This is his sort of game. And Caicedo, to be fair, it's what you don't see with him. He's just sweeping, basically. It's fine for him.
Yeah.
But I think Enzo, to be honest, it's going to be a huge test for him, this one, because he's basically going to have to battle to get any space. And when he does get that space, he's going to have to realise he's in that space and play the correct pass every time. It's a big job, actually. Enzo's the nucleus of this team. I think it's going to be a huge job for him in this one. But you're right, in terms of who's going to play, it will be those 3. Can't see unless anything else. Yeah,
I mean, what you're saying, Charlie. By that statement, do you think that if they're going to play with a 4-2-3-1, could you see Caicedo and Gallagher being the players that have to drop deep and do that kind of the brunt work, the leg work of that role, which will allow Enzo Fernandez to be the player in the number 10 position?
I think it's gonna be more of a 4-5-1. I honestly do think we'll sort of defend mid block. I don't think we'll press high. I think we'll be quite compact this game. I remember there's been phases in preseason where I saw Pochettino. He mentioned about the fact that we can be a high pressing team, but sometimes also be a mid defensive block where we just stay compact and invite the opposition onto us so we can counter attack. And I think it will be that type of game where you'll see maybe Caicedo and Enzo more as a 2, and then Gallagher slightly advanced when he has time to press a player, or a deep midfield player is on Arsenal midfield player is on the ball. That's maybe when that's the trigger to go press. And then Sterling also will have to do a lot of tracking back, which I believe he will start on the left and Palmer on the right. Although is Palmer fit? I'm not sure if you guys know.
Very touch and go from
Palmer. I think that there is. Yeah, they're assessing it. So Palmer played the first under-21 game, but initially picked up a dead leg in the game. So he sent home after the game against Serbia by Lee Carsley, the under-21 managers, to be assessed. So it could potentially be Cole Palmer that will start. And that's the other question, really. You mentioned that, Tem. If Sterling's on the left, where do we go for that person on the right? Is it going to be Cole Palmer? Are we going to save him, or do you think, Charlie, maybe it could be a chance for Noni Madueke, freshman, scoring 3 goals on under-21 duty in 2 games? Do you think he could potentially be given the chance to use that pace and use his dribbling ability that's probably a little bit, I'd say, more direct than Cole Palmer, even though Cole Palmer's probably a little bit more composed?
Yeah, I think, I'm just looking now at our injury list. I think it is going to be a case of who's available. Our injury list is 3 or 4 times bigger than Arsenal's, to be fair. And Arteta moans about his injury list sometimes. I've seen it. But I think it will be a case of who's fit. And when they come back, bearing in mind, some of them have probably only just come back today to Cobham, and they might not even be back until tomorrow. I mean, England were playing last
Yes.
night, weren't they? So there's, and there will be. I'm sure there's internationals on tonight. So this will be quite a quick turnaround. And if they're not fit enough, then I don't think they're going to play.
Yeah, I think it's just Enzo and Moises Caicedo. They're the ones to link up with the squad tomorrow, have their fitness assessed. But Temba, who would you prefer to see on the right side? Do you think Cole Palmer should retain his position? Do you think maybe Mykhailo Mudryk is another option as well for his raw pace? It would be very, very good for Mykhailo Mudryk to score against Arsenal, given he famously rejected Arsenal in January last year. And Alexander Zinchenko threatened to cut his balls off if he scored against them on Saturday. Is Mykhailo Mudryk potentially going to be saved to run at tired legs in the second half, do you feel?
Yeah. I think that's definitely his role. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think Pochettino trusts him defensively at all, especially in a game like this. I think we already saw against Burnley, he was immediately removed from the team as Sterling came back. I think it's much of the same of what we've seen last game. Apart from Broja, I think Sterling and Cole Palmer, I've been surprised with him defensively. He's actually been very, very good. He does close a lot of passing lanes. Obviously, I think he learned that at City under Pep. But even tracking back, he came back and he puts in some slide tackles and it gets involved in sort of the play. So it'll be interesting to see him up against Zinchenko and possibly Gabriel on that left-hand side.
Saliba.
Saliba. So, is Saliba the left side or Gabriel the left side?
I believe Saliba's the left side.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
One will cover for the other.
You play one up front nowadays. It's almost irrelevant.
Yeah.
So
let's. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, just to finish. So I think Cole Palmer will be trusted. Although Madueke has been on good form with the under 21s. Again, he's probably going to be a late sub if we're losing, or maybe need to make a sub second half if tired legs or an injury. But I think Cole Palmer and Sterling are guaranteed starters for me as those two wingers.
Well, we've got two options to start the number 9, Charlie. Armando Broja withdrew from the Albanian squad to work on his fitness. He went off injured against Burnley. Could you see Armando Broja not against Burnley, sorry, against Fulham? Do you think Armando Broja is probably going to be the person, or do you think he's going to stick with Nicolas Jackson as the man to get in behind?
I mean, I don't know how accurate my app is, but it says that they're both injured. It says Jackson's got a wrist injury, apparently. I don't know how serious that is.
That's a wrist injury. You can play with a wrist injury.
Yeah? Okay, so Jackson's available, yeah? And Broja's muscle injury, so that's obviously the one that he took against Burnley. I think until they have a press conference, I'm guessing they just have to, they probably just roll it on.
He's training with the squad, so he's training with the squad today. So he's in full training, so he's in full attention. But
can I just add? I think Broja had an injury as he went to Albania duty, so I think that was something we picked up in the Albania camp.
Oh, good. Okay, fantastic. Well, it's gonna be Jackson then, isn't it? Which is, Jackson. He scored, didn't he, against Burnley as a sub. A second half sub. He made quite a good impact. Obviously, Sterling was very good. I mean, look, if you look at that Burnley, a lot of the instrumental players in that performance are all fit and playing on Saturday. So you could argue that's good omen. But I think they may be eaten alive by their defence. That's what I worry about. I mean, Jackson. He can look quite good against a very average defence, but against, Saliba's probably, from what I've seen of him, so far this season, he will probably be in the X11 or whatever they call it at the end of the season. From what I've seen so far, he's probably the best centre back in the league at the moment, I would say, at this stage of the season. Obviously, there's a long way to go, but on form, I can't see how Jackson's going to cause him too many problems. And he's got Gabriel next to him as well.
I'm conscious of time, so let's have a quick run through who we think is going to be the 11. So, Tem, run through your 11, and then we'll compare and see how close we are to it.
My 11, or what I think Pochettino will play?
What you think?
What I think Pochettino will play? Is that the question?
Yep.
Okay, so Sanchez, Reece James, Silva, Colwill, Cucurella, Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher, Sterling, Palmer, and Jackson.
Charlie?
What I think Pochettino will play: Sanchez, Cucurella left, Silva, Colwill, Gusto, the same midfield, which I think everyone will have. Sterling. Don't know. I reckon he'll go Mudryk. Don't know why. Just reckon he will, and then Jackson. That's my only deviation, pretty much.
I think cool. For me, it'd be Sanchez, Gusto, Silva, Colwill, Cucurella, the midfield three that we've already mentioned, Sterling on the left. On the right, I think he'll go with Cole Palmer, and I think he'll play Jackson up top. So, we've all got slight deviations of that thing here, but I think it's best that we look at moving along. So Chelsea have unlocked space for Stamford Bridge stadium expansion with an £80 million land purchase. The club will buy 2.4 acres of the site, which currently sits between the West Stand and Fulham Broadway tube station, from Stoll, which is a charity which provides housing for the veterans. Stoll's board of trustees consulted with the residents of the building, Sir Oswald Stoll Mansions, before making the decision to accept Chelsea's bid, and apparently there were a dozen offers on the table for this site. So it looks like they were actually looking to sell, and it's a good thing, do you feel, Charlie, that Chelsea have managed to get this purchase and look at ways that we can kind of improve the area around Stamford Bridge?
Yeah, well, it's huge. We've been trying to expand Stamford Bridge for a long time. There are lots of reasons why we can't. Roman tried it and couldn't quite get there. Obviously, for people from worldwide, there's a number of reasons why we can't expand Stamford Bridge. The main reason is purely because there's a train line that runs around the back of Stamford Bridge, and just due to health and safety more than anything, if you increase the capacity to such an amount, certainly you can't build upon the train station, but also there's only one exit route, which is a massive issue. So it's a twofold thing. This building is essentially, just to put people into perspective, you have a stadium here, and you have essentially a block of flats. It's been there for a long time, probably about 200 meters from the stadium, maybe 300 meters from the stadium, and they've essentially bought this. Now they will probably end up knocking it down and getting planned. That will take a bit of time, but one of the options that they now have, which they haven't had for a long time at the moment, Stamford Bridge, all the office staff, or most of the office staff, they're not at Cobham, they're at Stamford Bridge. They have a lot of offices there. They also have hotels there. A lot of basically space that they can move. Also, the club shop is all within that stadium. There is an option now that they can actually move all of that to these buildings or to this land, and therefore that space can become bigger and more stadium orientated, while retaining the staff. Because of course the other problem is these staff who you have working in there, they're all from the local areas or commutable areas of this place. And just to put people into perspective, Cobham and Stamford Bridge are about 20 miles or so, but in London that's a huge thing. You could be it could take somebody to commute to Stamford Bridge may live the other side of London, so you might lose a lot of staff by just shifting everything to Cobham, which has a lot of space already. So it's a good move. It gives us a few more options. That's for sure. And I'm sure that's not the only option. There are probably other options as well. That's just one that a lot of people seem to be talking about, is possibly moving existing things that aren't stadium match day related stuff outside. So there you go.
I mean, I think knocking down knocking down the hotel certainly allows for an expansion of the shed end. I feel you can probably put another few thousand seats on there. The club want to get the capacity to a minimum of 55,000, which would be adding 13,000 seats. But that's not the only other option, is moving the admin staff to that area. The other option is, with the purchase of this, it doesn't look like Chelsea are going to look at the Earls Court location, if I'm completely honest. The only other option it looks like is a full demolition of Stamford Bridge and rotating the pitch 90 degrees and doing a full rebuild of the stadium. I mean, what side of the fence do you sit on? Do you feel like it would be beneficial for Chelsea to have a full reset to turn it into a modern stadia, or do you think they should do a Liverpool route and do things stand by stand?
Do you mean on the same site or
on the same site with that? I mean, with this purchase, I think with this purchase of Oswald Stoll Mansions, I can't see us going elsewhere. It doesn't make sense to me now that we've made this purchase. While I know you were a massive advocate for us moving to Earls Court for the space. You pointed out to me when we went down to watch Aston Villa beat us 1-0 that the space is a massive space that Chelsea could fill. But it's looking likely that we're going to stay at Stamford Bridge, which is pleasing for fans. It is, but fans, obviously you can't please everybody all the time. People want to do a redevelopment at Stamford Bridge, and some people want to do a complete knockdown and make it completely brand new. So if we're staying at this location, are you in favour of the 90-degree turn and expansion in that respect? We just need to get rid of the hotel, really, don't we? Just because that's a main hindrance, isn't it?
Well, I'm not a conveyor, I'm not a constructor, so I don't know exactly what the big difference would be if you knocked it all down, and what the difference would be if you did it stand by stand. But I think maximizing capacity and maybe just renovating around the stadium itself. So maybe completely demolishing it and starting again, but the problem that causes is you probably need a good 5 years away from Stamford Bridge, and that's a huge issue in itself. You're probably looking at playing at 2 or 3 different grounds now because of that. Do we run into a situation where we're Tottenham, we're playing at Wembley and not filling out the stadium, or fans maybe find it a bit difficult, although I think Wembley is easily accessible for most people. But the ones that live local to Stamford Bridge, are they going to approve of that? Or do we start maybe playing at Fulham as our home games or something like that? And there's less seats, I suppose. So again, like I'm saying, you run into a thing of you play maybe the small games of Fulham at home, and then you play the big games at Wembley or something. And even then, there might be, venue clashes and all that sort of stuff. So the logistics side of it may be quite a bit messy. So there is no easy way, I suppose. Maybe stand by stand is the best way, and just sort of doing like what Birmingham have done with closing certain stands whilst it's under development or whatever, and
that's asbestos.
Yeah, letting letting the rest of the crowd in at the time. So it's a really touchy subject, I think. I'd like to hear your thoughts, Tom.
It's definitely divisive. I actually I'm happy to share with that, but I want to throw this to Charlie, because Charlie, you've got experience with the construction world. If Chelsea get the keys, Chelsea will get the keys to Oswald Stoll Mansions. They're not going to get it till 2025 because they need to rehome the people that are currently live there at the moment. If Chelsea can aim to get something done by 2030, in your experience in construction, is it likely to stay to time? Is it going to go over budget? Is that a factor that Boehly's going to need to consider?
Well, most of the time it does go over. If it doesn't go over, it tends to be more expensive. So there's that. I mean, Tottenham Stadium was actually on time, just about, believe it or not. It's one of the few. But I can tell you, in my experience, that people that were working on that building site were getting paid around about double the amount of money that normal people would be getting paid for that building. So the owners paid a lot more money to get that on time. Of course, there's a double whammy there. You make money from ticket sales, also from beverages and stuff like that. But not only that, you avoid having to pay Wembley to rent the stadium for a year and stuff. And obviously, it's just more popular with everyone, and it just makes life a lot easier. obviously construction companies as well. They do get sanctions. As part of their thing, they are contracted to complete it by a certain time. So there's that. Look, if they got the keys tomorrow to this place, they would need planning to do a lot of these things. More than likely, they probably don't quite know. I wouldn't expect at this stage they actually know what they're doing. Trust me on this. They just know that that's a parcel of land that will probably make life a lot easier for them. And whether or not they use that parcel of land in some way, it doesn't really matter, because it's ultimately an asset for the club. If they pay for it, it's not really going to lose value, so they can always sell it. So even if they do move away from Stamford Bridge, they could just sell it as part of the Stamford Bridge. It makes it more attractive to developers, because if we were to move away from Stamford Bridge, in my opinion, God forbid, but if we were, that would all be within one complex. So it just makes the whole thing more desirable for developers because it's a bigger complex. And obviously that particular place is closer to the local metro station, or tube station as we call it in the UK. So I mean, it's more of a thing that I would argue it's more of a purchase to do it because they didn't want anyone else to do it, and it was like you say, for sale anyway. So if they might as well, it will give them a few more options for architects and so on. That's what I think.
And can I add to that as well? The other tricky thing is that we probably have to dig down because of that Henry VIII's law of we can't block the view of St. Richmond's cathedral. Correct. So does that
a
then
500-year-old rule?
Does that then
500-year-old rule is stupid?
Well, no, but that's
stupid.
Okay. It's but what I'm trying to say with that is that it's fairly obvious what that is section for. If they were to use that land, is that it will be for a club shop, offices relating to the club, probably, and also it allows a huge sort of park area. I mean, you've got to remember, modern grounds now, they are going this fan park, burger places, all that the club own. It's not random street vendors anymore. The club own most of these stuff. If you go to Liverpool now, the club shops, it's not attached to the Kop anymore. It's miles away. Man City's the same. Tottenham, I'm sure, is the same. Arsenal's definitely. So they all do this. They have a separate building away from the stadium where they have that, and the reason for that is very simple. They don't want to open the stadium when they don't need to. What's the point? What's the point of having to secure the stadium when they can just gate it off? It's just a lot easier. So they can have all that, because the average tourist or the average person who visits just wants to buy a shirt or something like that. They can go and visit the club shop away from the stadium. They don't need to access the stadium as such. So that makes sense. It does make sense, but of course, there's 100 obstacles with this. It's going to be a long thing, and to think that 2030, even now, unless they are literally going to release plans tomorrow, it's not going to happen. It'll be 10 years from now, I'm afraid.
I go back and forth on this, the stadium, because I feel it would be very beneficial to increase the capacity. It circumnavigates a lot of rules and regulations that we need to follow, like the stupid Henry VIII rule, by turning the stadium the other way around. And we would have to build downwards, which obviously we'd have to do some sort of
digging.
I can't even think of the word. Surveying on this one.
Excavation.
Excavation, and London.
And bearing in mind, there's a tube station underneath that as well, which
we'll have to reroute. If we did do that,
it's just not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah. So digging down's the issue that we have. So what's the option that you do have is making the actual. I don't know. I think now more so than ever, I think I'm leaning more towards keeping the stadium where it is in the same direction and doing it stand by stand. Yes, we're going to be operating a reduced capacity. It will take a little bit longer, one would assume. I can't confirm. Charlie, you can probably keep me honest on that. But you don't have to pay Wembley. You don't have to pay Twickenham. You don't have to pay Fulham, for rent of their stadium whilst we're there.
Well,
And then
can I just mention on that the reason why before this it wasn't possible to do that was because of the access routes onto the Fulham Road. So Fulham Road is again, to put our worldwide viewers, there is only one access and exit to Stamford Bridge, and it's on the Fulham Road. There is no other exit. You have to go via the Fulham Road. So in order to this new purchase could allow more people, of course, into that congregated area, and therefore a construction site could be possibly ongoing in one of the corners of that area, and still everybody negates onto the Fulham Road in some sort of thing. So again, it makes sense if they demolished that and just made it into literally just a big concrete, a big flat concrete area that may, for health and safety reasons, that may just be enough to put people there to get past the health and safety. So that's it. It makes sense in a lot of ways. There are a lot of different reasons why they might.
So would that just be for the time being? Do you think if they were to knock down the mansions itself, put a little fan park area, so they could probably close off the shed and to develop that stand first?
Yeah, so so for example, like if they wanted to knock down the hotel, they can't at the moment, because obviously if they were to do that, they would have to partition all of that area, and therefore people from the East Stand would have to go via the Matthew Harding to get out. So it just couldn't happen, because if there was a fire, for example, in the stadium and that area was hoarded off, so that entrance, the Britannia Gate, I think it's called the Britannia Gate entrance, where the shed end is, that entrance, if that was all blocked off, can you imagine? And everybody had to go out the West Stand, then that would be a complete nightmare. That you just couldn't do that. So that's the whole reason. So if you had hoarding around there, that's what would be the problem at the moment. But if you had that area there, you could do that, and you could there would be some way that you could channel people in a certain way. I don't know. Look, this is kind of off the top of my head very much, but I kind of think that's kind of what they're getting at. Charlie, did you say we could move the shops and offices, which mean we wouldn't have to dig down? I think so. Yeah, I think with the shops and offices could move to that site. There could be a new building, for example, a new building 2 stories high, where you could have a club shop on the first floor, and on the second floor you could have offices that we have existing at the moment at Stamford Bridge. There are people literally working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 at Stamford Bridge, doing jobs that they don't have to necessarily do at Stamford Bridge. They could do from home, or they could do it at Cobham. They can do it there, right? So they can move out of that. They don't have to be doing it at the stadium. It's not crucial that they're doing it at the stadium. So that's the point I was trying to make there, is that could be a separate entity, and it could allow the stadium to have more space for match day experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm conscious of time in this scenario, but we could talk about this forever. Just very, very quickly round up what we think the score is going to be at the weekend, Charlie.
I'm going to be really positive. I'm going to go 0-0.
0-0. That's positive. Tem.
Positive 1-1. Realistic 2-1 Arsenal.
I'm going to go 1-1, I believe, or I'd like 2-2. Why not? Desmond, we're going to do Desmond. But yeah, we appreciate it. We'll wrap up on this one. We usually run these podcasts at 9:30 on a Monday. That's when we will be back. Me personally, I won't be here on Monday, but Charlie and Temba will be taking us through the Chelsea-Arsenal game on Monday at 9:30. We appreciate you all for joining us. Make sure you hit the subscribe button at youtube.com/WeTalkChelsea. We've been live on TKS TV. That was the We Talk Construction Charlie podcast. We'll be back at 9:30 on Monday. Take care. Up the Chels.
Up the Chels.